Hello, this is Classical Music Spotlight. That opening music came from the pen of Georg Friedrich Handel sometime around the year 1720. Handel himself undoubtedly played this piece on the harpsichord, since the piano hadn't yet been invented. But on this CD, these suites are handsomely played by Philip Edward Fisher, who got his start in both life and on the piano in the city of Birmingham, in the West Midlands of England. Philip now spends a great deal of time in New York, which is where I caught up with him, at least by phone. I'll have that conversation in a minute. First, here's a bit more of the courant from Handel's Suite No. 1 for keyboard, from a series of pieces now called his Great Suites. Well, Handel wrote a lot of music for a whole variety of keyboard instruments. Mm-hmm. What instrument do you think Handel might have played these pieces on, or does it actually matter?
I think it's an interesting question as to whether it matters. I think for sure he would have written them for and performed them on the harpsichord. Whether or not it matters is a very kind of subjective idea. I mean, to some, I think it would matter for those who are maybe more purist at heart. For many, it's similar to playing Bach on the piano. Interestingly enough, I mean, the two composers were born the exact same year, and they were contemporaries. And somehow, Bach's keyboard music, or shall we say harpsichord music more specifically, has really found its way into just the staple repertoire when it comes to the piano. Somehow with Handel, that isn't quite the case, which I've always found interesting and somewhat strange. So
that is odd, isn't it?
It is, and it's something that's kind of fascinated me for a number of years now, but even up to recording these pieces. There are recordings available on piano. You do occasionally hear one of the suites on a recital program, but they're certainly not embedded into the repertoire, if you like, in the same way as Bach's keyboard music. It's an interesting thing, and it's certainly a question that I've asked myself, why this is the case.
Well, the pieces are among what are called the great suites of Handel.
That's right.
What makes them great or special in your mind?
It's an interesting question. Also, there are a number of other suites that he wrote later than these ones, actually. They're less significant in terms of structure, length, even content to a certain extent. These suites are closest to the structure that you might associate with a Bach English suite or a French suite, although they don't conform to the exact structure that those pieces do. They're slightly more flexible in terms of structure. But they are the largest set of suites, if you like, that Handel wrote. Even though he did go on to write other suites, they just don't quite have the substantial nature of these pieces. So these are genuinely paired together in terms of sets, and they're seen as a kind of sequence of works and often referred to as the great suites, as you say.
Well, I'm not a pianist, but I find the way Handel writes for the left and right hands incredible. It sounds like the two hands are having a conversation. Am I imagining this?
I don't think you are at all, actually, and you're not the first person to point this out to me. I've had a number of people who are even not necessarily musicians who have listened to this recording and mentioned this to me, and the specific movements in some of these suites where you really do feel that conversation between the right and left hands, and you feel that they have a character of their own. I mean, Handel is obviously such a gargantuan operatic composer, and I think that's one of the forms that we associate with him as a composer, maybe much more so than keyboard works, and I think you really do feel that connection to that genre in these works. So you're certainly not off the mark with that, and you're not the first person to point it out. It's an interesting point.